That was his intention anyway.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Bob. Hey, good morning, Donnie's audience. We just officially have hijacked Donnie's show. We don't know where Donnie is. This is the Donnie Glover Political Roundtable on Black USA News. And we've got everything going except for Donnie. And in my estimation, not necessarily a bad thing. So, Donnie, I hope you're out there watching your show. It's like being in a house watching your bicycle go by your window. Hey, ain't that my bike? Yeah, this is your show, Donnie. Anyway, Bob, how you doing, man?
I'm fine this morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Just goes to show in our community, one monkey don't stop no show, and the show must go on, man. I know Donnie had texted me about a political roundtable. We know that there is so much going on in local politics and national politics. Although I've always said my focus is on what am I doing about it, not necessarily the fact that madness is going on around me, man. But been pretty interesting, Bob. Been pretty interesting, man.
Well, among other things, that the thing that obviously would be a somewhat concern to me, or I'd be interested in anyway, is Trump's assault on the legal profession, or at least those in the legal profession who have seen fit or had the audacity, either in their personal capacity or as an attorney for various parties who've had the audacity to challenge any of his actions or anything that's been done under his name or for his benefit. Him being, of course, Trump. And he made a deal with one of the so-called big law firms, Paul Weiss, but others, Elias and other firms, so far have, as far as I can tell, have not succumbed to Trump mania, and have indicated that they are indeed remain committed to doing what the profession dictates, which is to represent any client with a creditable claim that's whose interest is consistent with the interests of the firm. And so, but this idea that the whole world began against Trump, and expanded by the notion that if you are against Trump, you are indeed against the world, is one that we see played out over and over, and almost in every instance. This person called Donald Trump wants to be king of the world, and there's only a couple of people who he apparently is willing to share his throne with. One being his deputy Musk and the Musketeers, one being his hero Putin, and the other being the American Secretary of State, which is not Mark Rubio, is Bibi Netanyahu. So, uh, other than those people, he apparently is obsessed with the idea that anyone who has ever said anything against him, and particularly if you're a so-called Democrat. Now, I don't know what happened. I mean, he forgets a lot of things, which is at one point he was one of those demagogues himself, Democrats himself, a long time ago. But for black people, I think what this demonstrates more than anything else is that what Bernie Sanders said about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is absolutely true, which is that they're both parties dominated by billionaires who, for the most part, are white billionaires who have no one's interest other than their own at heart. And Bernie's correct about that. And so this is the world that we have. How do you see it, Mike?
Hey, well, are we surprised that that is his play to be king and ruler of the United States? So he was elected. So as far as I'm concerned, I wish him well. How can I be upset and mad? So hey, maybe my candidate didn't win. Maybe the best and I'm not going to say most qualified, the person that got the most votes, even though I hear the conspiracy theories out there that perhaps the election was fixed and Elon Musk and X had something to do with that. But, you know, if Donald Trump succeeds, so we have a lot of our brothers and sisters around the world of color that are in dictatorships and autocratic situations around the world, and they live and they survive, right? And most of those are corrupt environments from a resource perspective. So why can't we be? Why is it that we can't be aligned as the United States to what much of the rest of the world is, particularly when you look at certain countries that have sort of the same, or leaders have sort of the same game plan as Donald Trump? So I sleep good at night. You know, it's unfortunate what we're seeing in terms of the spill out as he marches towards that path of total rule, total control that he was voted in. Donald Trump was voted in the presidency based on the platform that he is now carrying out. Now, there have been some surprises, not on my part. There's been surprises on the behalf of the people that voted for him, that all of a sudden the water hose was turned on them. Right? But short of that, what the hell, man? I mean, what I care? Do you care?
Yeah, well, you know, first of all, the notion that the 79 million people or so that voted for him were intended for him to do what he's doing is obviously false. Because a great number of them have been surprised by what he has done, by where he pointed, as you say, the water hose. But the other thing is, what happened to the other 78 million or so who didn't vote against him? They no longer Americans? Did their positions no longer care? Are their positions no longer important or even to be acknowledged? I mean, he acts like the only people that voted were the 79 million that voted for him, and nobody else matters. Particularly if you're from the state of Maine and you're the governor of Maine, who had the audacity to challenge him in person, and who says, you know, an apology from the state is not sufficient. She's got to personally get on her knees and grovel in response, because she made the statement, "I'll see you in court." And she now says, okay, Trump says, well, until she personally apologizes to me, I'm cutting off all funds to the state of Maine. And her response is, okay, then no citizen of the state of Maine, the income tax that ordinarily we withhold for the federal government and send to you, guess what? We're not sending you any money. So we don't have to ask you to send it back. We're going to keep it in the first place, since you're not sending us anything. But this is going on within the United States, not just the rest of the world. And of course, we know, you know, Musk's involvement in the election in Germany and other parts of the world where he's trying to establish himself or reestablish himself, as the case may be. But no, I no, people shouldn't be surprised. But what is somewhat alarming is that we have not, at least I haven't seen any leadership within our community. And I'm not calling our community people of color, because the last time I looked, white was also regarded as a color. So I'm going to call it what it is. I'm going to talk about, I don't see any leadership in the non-white community, whichever shade of non-white you claim, black, brown, or yellow. But I haven't seen any semblance of leadership within the non-white community against him. And of course, the only line of defense so far seems to be the courts and the judges. And he's said over and over again, I don't really care. I mean, he says on the one hand publicly, we are not defying the rule of law or the judges, but he's doing exactly the opposite. That's always been his play. Say one thing and do the other. He's like a magic man. It's like the shell game, where now you see it, now you don't. So yeah, I'm not defying the rule of law, but I'm not telling you who was on the planes either. Well, you can.
I hear you, Bob, but I think it's a total waste of my time. I don't know how you feel about your time.
Yeah.
I feel it's a total waste of my time to focus on what this man is doing and how he's doing. The fact that I was on the losing side, you said 79 to 78 million, I think was a little wider than that, but who cares? We all know in sports, when you win, and the winners reap all the spoils. And when you lose, you lose. You sit on the sideline, you suck it up, and look for a better day. You know, and I think that complaining, just like that governor, independent Republican governor, whatever she was, of Maine, etc., that said that in the White House, and you said that the people that voted for him are surprised. They shouldn't be, because when you deal with a loose cannon like that, you never know what it is you're going to get. It isn't like this guy didn't intimate a couple of years prior to actually running that he felt as though the government of the United States, and, you know, as I traveled the world, and, you know, I've had an opportunity, fortunately, to travel widely, is that people don't like our every 4 years in and out of government. They're like every 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, you guys are switching up, and then the rest of the world has to adjust to you. Is that really what democracy is all about? Hey, do we have an imposter in the studio, man? I thought you blocked that.
Well, you know, but Mike, this is the only form of democracy where the winner actually does take all. In every other form of democracy that I'm aware of around the world, even the winner has to form a coalition to govern. You cannot simply ignore those who didn't vote for you. You cannot. That there must be a coalition. This is the
They just had that happen in Canada. Canada prime minister won,
yes.
but in order to have votes, and that's the parliamentarian system, the English system of government, that you may be a Tory, but you've got to get 2 or 3 of the other parties to join you in order to have the significance to carry the weight of your agenda through the parliament. Which means that it's a multi-party system to what you've always spoken of, Bob. Whereas here in this country, we basically relied on the strength of a 2-party system.
Well, and that's because it wasn't intended to be a 2-party system. That's what those in power have created. The Constitution there's nothing about in the Constitution that says there's going to be 2 parties, and there's certainly nothing that says there's going to be Democrat and Republican. And the names, obviously, as you know, have changed over the years, which is why, you know, the Republican Party during the era of our grandparents and great grandparents is certainly not the Republican Party as it exists today, and not even before Trump was that true. So what happens is the billionaires, the ruling class, has found a way to usurp the government that was created to protect the people. The billionaires never need. Good morning, Doni. How are you? The billionaires don't need government. They never did. The government was protected for the people, to protect the people from the king. What we see now in America is that the king has taken over the government, so that the people are left with no protection whatsoever. Right, Doni?
Well, where do we start? Good morning, and thank you for starting the show. I'm seeing some of the headlines about this guy. This is from CNN 2 hours ago. Even rich people are starting to worry about this guy.
Yeah, because but not so much worried about him, but they know that he really doesn't control the Musk and the Musketeers. They're really worried that Musk is going to tread over into their territory. That Musk eventually will become bigger than they are. That they will. Who am I to speak for rich people? I'm not sure I even know any. But it seems to me that if the goal of the rich is simply to acquire more, and somebody is out there that stands in your way or is even threatening to take what you have, then that's the reason for them, even the rich, to complain. And I think that may be what you're referencing, or what the article that you're talking about is really referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Michael?
I say bring it on. Let it happen. But people, this is what people wanted. And it's what's really interesting is to see still the people who justify this guy. That's what's really interesting. There's still people who justify him.
Well, that's residuals of a dictatorship.
Black and white.
I mean, you see it happening in Russia and other China, where you have your cohort of people around your leaders who are benefiting as a result. That's the choir. So his choir are the ones that are regurgitating what it is that they see everything right about this. And he said to the people, Donald Trump said to the people, hang on, you're going to endure some pain before, I spread the good amongst you. So he's telling his people that in order to set it up so that everyone benefits in the future, this little pain that you may suffer, the job losses, etc., because the jobs are going to come back to the United States as a result of terrorism. We're going to have a higher educational level of employees in the public sector again, because we're dumping and cleaning out the federal system. So he's redistributing money, or the GNP of the United States. And you know what? I'm sitting here watching and I'm saying, well, let's see what happens.
Well, I think we know what's going to happen. I mean,
well, what's going to happen? Because I don't know.
What's going to happen is he's going to continue acting out his obsession with power. He's going to continue, the billionaires around him are going to continue acting out their desire to acquire greater control over the resources of the world. We see that play out in the so-called deal in the Ukraine for the so-called precious minerals, which happen to include lithium, which happens to be a primary component of batteries, which happens to be absolutely necessary for the operation of this vehicle called a Tesla. So we see it played out. We see it played out even in Africa, where at the same time, the precious minerals and resources have been stolen over the years, converted into something useful, sold back to them at extravagant prices, and then loans are made to them to buy back the goods and products that were made with their resources. And the amount of debt that they have to repay is such that they don't have the money to provide for the resources for their own people. Health.
Have you heard of Ibrahim Traore in Africa that created his own plane company and own electric vehicles and mobile phone that Elon Musk is saying is going to destroy? Have you heard of Ibrahim over in Africa? I'm going to see if I can Google it, Donnie, so you can pull it up.
The black man with his own electric car?
Absolutely, and his own fleet of planes and starting. The U.S. is upset that he's doing this. If you could pull that up, Donnie, that'd be phenomenal. Because he says, well, we rely too much on America to fuel the global economy. So here's this rich guy that in Africa, African guy, that's created his own, man. And Elon Musk apparently is very upset at this, but this is what I mean when we have to do something about it. So we sit around, complain, and Donnie, I wonder what the correlation is between the $3 trillion the U.S. is in debt and the $3 billion the state of Maryland is in debt, and the ultra responses by each of those leaders, the country's leader and the state's leader, to the debt. Should we subsidize it? You, Bob, and I don't have a government job, right? Is government now a form of welfare where we put people to work to balance out an economy, even though it's a losing proposition? Or do we actually do something and resolve debt, even if it's painful, so that you, Donnie, and I, Bob, aren't paying exponentially for stuff that, is of no benefit to us, only consequences? Well, I mean, what's happening in Maryland?
Well, first of all, we need to tell the truth about who benefits from the government dole. the fact of the matter is that Elon Musk was absolutely bankrupt. Tesla was bankrupt, and SpaceX was bankrupt until Obama made a loan of $465 million for energy conservation, for new energy sources, by the way. And SpaceX was given a contract by NASA, both occurring around 2009. And following that infusion of capital from U.S. taxpayers, and then he took Tesla public and was able to raise the money, not just the money to repay the debt, but to in fact convert to produce the first profitable model of Tesla, the Model S, that exists. But until then, and he's continued to thrive off of the government dole ever since. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's got made over $23 billion in contracts from the federal government. So let's not talk about the federal government as though individual consumers are the ones who are living off the government. The fact of the matter is, just like the dispute now between Lockheed Martin and Boeing about this new so-called fighter jet, that they're going to call it F-47 in favor to honor Trump, or the new Trump Center that used to be the Kennedy Center Performing Arts. The fact of the matter is, all of these corporations that we look up to, that we say are symbols of America's success, not one of them would exist today without their contracts with the federal government. Not one.
So,
Donnie, I just sent you a text, Donnie, with this black entrepreneur in Africa. I'm going to try to pull it up because it's compelling. It's compelling.
Here's the question: Is it a flex when an African American buys a Tesla? Are we really putting two and two together? Tesla's made by a racist from South Africa. When a black person buys a Tesla, the question, is that a flex? Or, no disrespect, is that one geopolitically ignorant son of a bitch?
Well, that is no more ironic than Jews buying Volkswagens or Mercedes-Benz. Right? I know plenty of Jewish people who own Mercedes-Benz. In fact, I know most of the ones that I know own Mercedes-Benz, and a lot that own Volkswagens or Porsches for that matter. So I don't think that the fact that an American black person might buy a Tesla, but first of all, the ones that I know that have Teslas bought them before they knew who Elon Musk was. But even today, if those that go out today and buy Tesla, I don't take that as a treasonous act against the black community. I see that somebody acting what they believe to be their personal interest, which is fine. But it's fine to have a personal interest. Everybody has one. But the point is, are you willing to control it to the point where you don't allow your personal interest to overcome and to trump the group benefit? That's the problem. Where do you draw the line? Is there a cap? Is there a line in the sand that you won't cross? And this country has always maintained that there was such a line, that whether it was promoted or by the Constitution or by a sense of morality or by just a sense of right and wrong. But the fact of the matter is that line has been completely obliterated in recent times. There's no control. There's nothing that they won't do to achieve personal interest. That's the problem.
I mean, I look at the interest that we have put in one damn dance called Boots on the Ground. If I've seen it once, I've seen it a million times. Are we just that lost?
When you say we, who is we?
Black people. Give us a dance. Give us an airframe. Have you seen it? Have you seen it, Bob? Ricky would
No.
have the audacity to call this dance a movement.
I haven't seen.
We have teenagers who cannot read. Wouldn't that be a more intelligible movement that we actually need? Do we need another line dance? Or are we just that damn gullible?
Or we, like everybody else, the victims of those people, those 6 corporations that control 90% of the media. What we think we know, we don't know. We only know what we only think we know what we're told. The fact of the matter is, and if you keep repeating it enough, it will be believed. That's the pedagogy of learning.
Our young people cannot read.
They don't have to. That's the point. That's the whole point. You've been told you don't have to read. You don't have to know anything. Just do what we say. Follow our lead.
I watched a woman the other day videotaping a 2-year-old on TikTok. I'm watching it with my own eyes. Yeah. And she looking at me to see if I see it. I was like, I can't believe I see you. And it was just some really adult music. What in the hell happened to us, man? What our ancestors, look, and then we got this thing, oh, not everybody's made for college. Do we really understand what our ancestors went through to build black colleges? And then we have the audacity to say, now our ancestors were killed in some cases if they were found out to be learned, if they were found out to know how to read, how to count. But now we have embraced ignorance. Oh, not everybody's made for college. When a person gets locked up, a young adult, a young black man, what happens to him, Mr. Bob, when they go over to the jail? They make him go to class. But we have embraced 60 is passing.
Oh no! Yeah. I mean, that's
we don't even talk about Sonia Santolisa. Mike, I have not heard that woman's name in a year at least. Mike, you said it yourself. Nobody goes to the school board meeting. We now have a partially elected school board. You have not heard one damn word from the school board. Not one.
Because just like the Board of Public Work, the Board of Estimates in the city, it's still controlled by the mayor. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. You only have 2 elected leaders. You only have 2. And education, you're right, our threshold, because it has been taken away from our community since Brown versus Board, we decimated our education apparatus with Brown versus Board. And here we are decades later paying for that decimation of it because our educators aren't of the community. You know that over 80% of the educators are not African American and less than 3% are African American men. Back in the 40s and 50s, we had no choice but to have 100% of all of it because we couldn't get education any other way. So be careful what you ask for.
And we got to, Donnie, I'm going to draw a distinction between the group that I call American blacks and other black folk, because there's a difference. There's a difference between somebody who looks like me, who just got off the plane in first class section, and people who look like me, who's still bearing the scars from incarceration or either the so-called illicit form of slavery. And I refer to incarceration as a form of slavery because that was the exception under the 13th Amendment. when slavery was supposedly abolished, it was abolished with the exception of those serving time. And what you see is serving time is for the rest of your life. The black men who are incarcerated, who have supposedly paid their debt to society, who are no longer on parole or probation, still can't get jobs because the fact that they were incarcerated is still part of the permanent record. So that you have to go through a process of so-called expungement which is very, very limited. So you never repay your debt. You're branded for life. You cannot recover from it, because every time you apply for a job, are you a convicted felon? Have you gone, whether the job has anything to do with the cause of your incarceration in the first place? So the process of the business of incarceration has never ever ended, even though supposedly slavery was an economic institution. It was an economic institution justified by race, but it was an economic institution. And we've not, and so the answer to that is why haven't our civil rights organizations ever argued, Donnie, that the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment prohibition against taking property without just compensation, why hasn't that been argued? Why do we, when people talk about reparation, they talk about it as though it's a social issue and not a constitution, they're not based upon constitutional principles? Why is it that the NAACP, in spite of everything that Trump has done already, the only coalition that they form is one when to abolish the Department of Education with only 4,000 people, 4,000 employees, the fewest number of employees of any federal agency to begin with. That's the only coalition that the NAACP is joined for the purpose of suing Trump. Why is that? Why has it been silent?
Is the NAACP really our organization?
Well, that's the question I'm asking. Or the Urban League, for that matter.
We fall for the okie doke. Do black people really run the NAACP?
Or the Urban League? Or the National Minorities Development Supplier Council? Or any of those other sort of venerable organizations that are supposed to be representative of the black community? Whatever the black community is, however you define it.
So this is why it goes to the sense that when we ask them for money to support these organizations, the organization's agenda has to align from where the money comes and not cross that threshold, right?
Right.
So the money is tied. The money that we ask for, when you see the Image Awards broadcast, who do you think pays for that? So it ain't gonna be but so controversial. Ask Arsenio Hall what happens when you get money from someplace and you become controversial, they'll cut you off at the knees. Ask Joe Biden when he pardoned the 2 judges in Pennsylvania who sold children into the penal system for profit in our recent time, just a couple of years ago. He pardoned them in December, right? Ask him about the pay method of prison or the penal system, man, that it is alive, well, and real. So when our black men come out of prison, the unfortunate thing and why they can't get jobs is because they don't come back to communities. They come back to neighborhoods. See, we have this false image of what community is. We always say unity in the community. We don't have communities. We have neighborhoods. We have neighborhoods because communities are thriving thresholds of opportunity with businesses, banks, etc., that become self-sufficient. Which is why, as you talk about Donald Trump, is separate but equal more than a doctrine. I keep saying it. I'm not saying it for any reason other than for us to put it on the table and discern it. Is it time to look at separate but equal as more than doctrine? We lived with it for decades before we went and asked them if we could come move and go to school in their neighborhood.
If we had a Willie Adams alive today, would our educated blacks in the highest offices in the land appreciate what he contributed to our community? Or have we reached a status that is so elite that we would totally want to write Willie Adams out of the history books?
Well, I think to your question, Donnie, which is a compelling question, that our elite leaders have been bought and paid for people that are of the other races, such
we'll
that
take Cecil Rhodes's money.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So we have been bought and paid. So we look at someone like Willie Adams who fueled our communities, because we had communities back then. We had thriving communities that he helped build.
We had a code.
So what, Don? What?
We had a code.
Yeah. Well,
but they saw that. That's why they cut him off at the knees and kept until he formed a coalition with white people. White people wanted in with his game like they do every time. Every time we seem to have something thriving of our own, you know, they're going to figure out a way to get themselves cut into the game.
Wasn't that what the movie Hoodlum was about with Lawrence Fishburne?
Absolutely. That's right.
But have we become so elite, so accomplished, so wanting to be their neighbors and their friend that we would look down our nose at a little Willie Adams today?
Because our ultimate objective was to be accepted by white people. And the only way we could, the way that we figured that we could best accomplish that was to be like white people.
And talk like them.
And talk like them, dress like them, act like them, and cherish their goals and objectives. No matter how, no matter how they accomplish.
Ebonics isn't real. Should we be speaking Ebonics?
Now, it's not a question of should we be speaking it. The question is who decides what we speak. Who decides that what we speak is the wrong way or the right way or the good way or the bad way?
Whoever sets the standard for where we feel success is, be it Harvard, be it Roland Park, or be it Northrop Grumman, whoever sets the standard for what it is that we feel we have to attain to work in that society.
Put another way, who pays the piper calls the tune. That's what you just said. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And I heard that in years ago when I was a member of a local congregation, religious congregation known as Huber Memorial Church. There was a leader of the youth ministry within that church get on the pulpit and to announce a summer internship program for young black kids. And he repeated, he said, listen, you all, I'm not going to tell you about an opportunity at Howard. I'm talking to you about an opportunity at Harvard. He emphasized that. I'm not talking about Howard now. I'm talking about Harvard. What is that saying to the young people? That's saying to the young people that what Howard may have, no matter how good it may be, can never approach the benefit of going to Harvard. That is what we have taught our children, and then we wonder why they have no respect for us. We've taught our children that whatever white folk have to offer is better than anything we could ever provide to them. And then we wonder why they don't respect us. Because
I don't know if that's true, Bob.
I don't know what's true. What part do you disagree with?
Because at one point we had no choice but to respect what we had, and that's when you had more HBCUs by far than you have now. That's when we had black teachers living in the black community as well as black preachers. But when you have a preacher like P.M. Smith perpetrating that and preaching that in the pulpit,
he didn't say P.M. Smith.
I know it was, and it was in his church, but it wasn't him that said it. Go ahead.
But it's his church, so it allows. So that's the tone of his church, and we know it anyway, right?
We know
that's the tone of his church.
Oh. Now, be careful. Are you saying that PM is a conservative?
What I'm saying is that to what Bob said, because if it's my church, I'm not going to let something happen that I don't approve on that wide. If that's my church, so if I'm saying that Harvard is better than Howard, and you should look at Harvard as the achievement, and it wasn't mitigated, then that's PM's church and his voice, and he said it too. Whether it came out of his,
I can't totally give it.
I'm saying that
somebody that goes to your church doesn't have to believe everything you believe.
He said he was part of his ministerial staff.
At the same time, P.M. Smith is the only pastor that have come to the corner of Pennsylvania and lost. The only preacher that I've seen with a huge church that will bring his congregation right to the heart of the hood. So we got to be careful how we judge, Michael.
I love P.M. Smith. I can judge and say what I want because I believe that instance is his voice. But I'm also, it doesn't mean that you corrupt the whole body because one thing comes out someone's mouth. Hey, listen, I had the man on my show and played clips of him giving out water and giving inspiration to people. But it doesn't mean that everything said. There are contradictions there. There are contradictions if you look at it. And we as media have to call it out. You got to call out the contradiction.
One in particular is the
We have
notion
to be
that
mindful of the
one Donnie, one area that is that I find fault with is the notion that you can ultimately define and describe the goals and objectives or the lack of accomplishment within a community, that you can align that directly with political affiliation. That Democrats I've often heard him say that refer to the fact that since it's been since the, or I should have put it another way, since the mid to late 50s, Baltimore City has been under Democratic leadership. And even today, and so therefore you deduce from that the reason that the city and other cities that have been have similar history are in the condition they are is because of, quote, Democratic leadership. That's a non sequitur in my opinion. The fact that these people who are elected to office happen to be Democrats or whether they're Republicans has nothing to do, is not control with who they are as human beings and who they or what they believe in their hearts and minds and in their souls and the programs that they support. We're not born Democrats or Republicans, and so you cannot, that being a Democrat or Republican cannot be used to explain the situation. In fact, we see now the effect of adopting that point of view. The effect today is everything Democratic is evil in the minds of the Trump world. If you're a Democrat, you're evil, period. I don't care what you have to say. I don't care how learned you are. I don't care what degrees you may have. If you're a Democrat, you are a bad guy, period. And that's the problem that I have, because nobody's born that.
Calling for a decrease in cash for critical services.
Nobody's born Democrat or Republican. And
they're both evil. Baltimore is 9-1 Democrat. Everything wrong with Baltimore tends to be a Democrat's fault.
Yeah, it's not. But it's not.
Including that's the
fallacy. That's the fallacy. That is the fallacy. That is because they're Democrats. Bernie Sanders, as I say, had it right. They're both organizations, Democrats and Republicans, run by white billionaires. That's the truth of the matter. And so for us as Black people to adopt a position that one is better than the other, or one is evil and one is good, is absolutely fallacious. That detracts us from what are really missing in our community, which is real leadership. That's what we like.
And that's what for non-affiliated to be able to vote in the primary.
Well, it's time for closed primaries to be eliminated, period. It's time, because the structure of closed primaries is the antipathy of the democratic process. It's the antipathy of the democratic process. It's the first step in the process of not being able to choose who you want.
I shame.
Okay, I'm done for now. So anyway, what do you think of AOC replacing Chuck Schumer, if that has any meaning for us as a people?
I love AOC. I love Jasmine Crockett too. I hope she keeps punching him in the forehead.
Oh, wait a minute now. Pam Bondi has already issued a warning to Jasmine Crockett. You got to be careful when you tell people that when you say the things that support the destruction of Teslas. You better be careful. I'm coming after you. I've been ordered to come after you. This first time I've known of a political figure being threatened by an attorney general, the same attorney general, who instructs our staff to completely ignore and disobey an order from a federal judge. When the judge says, I want to know if anybody violated my order, the attorney general says, you don't have a right to that information.
So honestly, do you see this circus continuing, or do you see somebody getting wiped off the map? Do you see somebody getting popped? Do you see a civil war? Do you see an assassination? Do you see this circus continuing?
I see all three. I see a civil war. I see the process. I see the thing that's begun continuing, and I see the possibility that somebody may be, quote, assassinated. But they're not mutually exclusive. In fact, I think they go hand in hand.
Do you think the initial stunt when somebody clipped Trump's ear was a game, was a ploy, or do you think somebody really got that close to him and missed?
I think we'll never know. I think that when the shooter was killed, we lost. And there was a scene in the Designated Survivor, a TV series that where Kiefer Sutherland was the designated survivor and became president after the entire government was blown up during the State of the Union address or something like that. And the person and then they tried to kill Kiefer Sutherland so that their designated vice president would elevate, and the shooter was killed before anybody could talk to him and find out what his motive was. I don't know who was the target from that shooting, because he'll never tell. I do know that if somebody's ear had been hit by an AK-15, that it would have been more than a scratch. That I do know.
So where do you see it going, Mike Haynie? Do you see this circus continuing?
Donnie.
I mean, they've gutted civil rights legislation. Here's my favorite video on TikTok. It's the one of people calling out Latinos who voted for Trump. And it starts off typically with somebody laughing so hard. And the question comes up, how's that working out for you? Like the Cubans for Trump. Oh, Donald Trump. Hola, mi amigo, mi presidente. And then they locked up in the next clip and they say, what the hell?
Well,
the way I see it, Donnie, since you asked me that question, is that I don't
want to start a movement because we want to dance.
Yeah, I don't focus my energy on that negativity, man, because it doesn't, so what happens, whether assassination, war, does not affect me. I don't feel anyway. You know what I'm saying? Directly,
how are you gonna feel the next time you travel abroad and they say, sorry, Mr. Haynie, you can't come back into the United States?
Me?
Well, he's not from Nigeria. He don't have to worry about that.
I don't think I have that problem.
You've been to Kenya.
I may not care if that's the case.
Are you ready for that?
I think I'm ready for that.
Well,
I think what I'm ready for, Donnie, is to be my choice. To be my choice, if that's where I'm at. And I think that's what we have to, if we want community, we have to focus on building a community and get out of the neighborhood mode. So all this focus on what is happening, that at the end of the day, where does it take us anyway, right? Because we're right back in the Democratic threshold in 4 years if we work to reelect them because we're afraid of this monster, right? So we get another monster like Gavin Newsom or whoever, right? Versus building our community and our infrastructure and asking for the right things at the table, man. We ask for the wrong things at the table. Our negotiating skills when it comes to Black America are negligible at best.
Okay, we got an election coming up in 26. Are we ready? You got Baltimore County. You've got Julian Jones running for county executive. You got Izzy Patoka running for county executive. You got Pat Young and possibly even a Charles Sidnor. Where's the goon squad going to come from that's going to take Sidnor and Julian Jones and put them in a room and pimp slap them both and say, you're running and you're not running? Or are these two accomplished Black men politically going to split the Black vote? And we're going to have a Carl Stokes, Lawrence Bell, Martin O'Malley scenario in Baltimore County.
Well, you know, that one element, that one person that you left out of the Carl Stokes, Martin O'Malley thing was a guy named Pete Rollins, who ultimately had more to do with the outcome than anybody that you mentioned. The deal that he made that ultimately put O'Malley in. We don't have a Pete Rollins in Baltimore County that I'm aware of. No, so no, I'm not aware of any organization in Baltimore County that could pull Jones and Sidnor, or Jones, Sidnor, and Pat Young, or whoever, into a room and say you run and you don't run. We don't have a 3rd district metro organization or a 4th district metro organization, and certainly nothing akin to a goon squad in Baltimore County. And that's because in many ways we're still asleep.
And then do we have a replacement for Julian Jones?
Yeah. The question is, Donnie, do we have enough American Black people who are willing to listen to the right voice? That's really the question. We've always had the numerical strength to determine the outcome of an election. Now, sometimes we ask the wrong question. Do we have enough votes in and of ourselves to win? That's not what you need. Elon Musk only owns 13% of Tesla stock.
And this man is going broke. How can he have so much power and he's going broke? He is literally seconds away from going broke.
Well, he's not seconds away because in many ways he's already cashed out of Tesla. He's put up his Tesla stock. He put up his Tesla stock to buy Twitter. That's the collateral for the money they loan. So that's another trick. That only in America can I get the benefit of what I own without having to pay tax on it because I haven't realized it yet. I haven't sold it yet. But I don't have to sell it to get the benefit of it. I got to put it up for collateral, and you loan me your money, and then I go buy what I want. Same difference. You got to understand how the system really works. So
let me ask you one last question, because I know we're running out of time. Yeah. Are either one of you familiar with Paul Wiedefeld?
Yeah, he's a former WNATA and head of the
Paul Wiedefeld, Secretary of Transportation.
Yes, I know him. I know him.
Now, he's the one who got rid of Ricky Smith during Ricky Smith's first tour of duty. Remember, Ricky Smith came in under Ehrlich to run BWI Airport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Donnie, Donnie, that's a good example. And Ricky Smith is responsible for the bankruptcy of at least 2 Black families that I'm aware of. Right? Because during the minority business fair, Black people were encouraged to become vendors and concessionaires at the airport. And they were encouraged. But then when they got their leases, they found out that, hey, well, this site that you thought you were going to have on the main corridor, it's not there anymore. It's over here in the back where nobody goes. And guess what? Those items that you thought you were going to sell and make money at 50 cents, I'm only going to allow you to sell them at 25 cents. So you can't make a profit at that amount. So look,
you're blaming Ricky Smith on that?
He was in control. He was in control of the master lessee that controlled the concession arrangement at the airport when those things happened.
I thought that was Fratport.
Like I said, he was in control of them.
Let me finish the scenario. So Ricky gets bounced out of the airport the first time, and for all intents and purposes, Ricky gets a great grade. Obviously, because he's now been promoted to run the busiest airport in the world. And I don't think you get there being a failure.
And I called that. Remember, I called that.
You called what?
I called the fact that he was going to leave Baltimore and go to Atlanta. I called that.
Well, what I'm getting to is that Wiedefeld was O'Malley's boy, right?
Yeah.
Hogan comes in, brings Ricky back because Ricky left, went and ran Cleveland's airport. But then this governor brings Wiedefeld back. And no one is really saying it, but Wiedefeld was probably descending down on Ricky again. I mean, Wiedefeld was the guy that fired Ricky the first time or chased him out.
O'Malley's boy. So are you saying
O'Malley's boy.
So are what you really alluding to is the fact that this is still O'Malley's government?
I'm just putting it out there.
I'm just asking the question. Is that what you're alluding to? The fact that O'Malley still has his hands and paws on government here, and that's the reason why we're $3 billion in debt, and why Hogan will come back and probably run the next election cycle. Is that what you're saying?
Well, remember, Francho had a deal already with Major Riddick, didn't he, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But my question is, why didn't Ricky Smith raise the issue? Why did Ricky Smith complain about what was being done to him by Wiedenfeld?
Because he had another option, Bob. Why would he?
No, because he was concerned only about Ricky Smith. Call it what it is. He was concerned only about Ricky Smith. He wasn't concerned about how the black community actually knowing the truth about what was going on, so that they could act, so that we could act accordingly. He was concerned only about his own
truth. What was the truth? What was
Donnie, in what form did Ricky Smith come forward and complain about what was going on and why he was being treated and who was responsible for it? What form did he occur? What form did he appear in and say those things?
Who would he complain to?
It's not a question of. I use the word complain. I said or inform. What form? What venue did he use to inform our community about what was going on?
I can tell you what form he did.
Go ahead.
The one in which he went to and handed him his damn resignation and went somewhere where he was wanted. That's the biggest form of complaint that you can ever go against the system, because the system at that level don't really care. You hand them your shit and you go elsewhere. And then you let people speculate as to why. As to why. Why did Maryland lose someone of that talent, that stature, to the best system in the world? Because Maryland couldn't handle it.
And a racist like Wiedefeld even allowed.
He had the perfect complaint. He complained the best way possible. Hey, here you go. Get who you want. I'm out of here. Can't beat that.
Try to replace that. So you got to replace Ricky Smith. You got to replace Al Hutchinson. And it's brought to my attention that you got to replace the BDC guy, Colin.
Yeah, Colin Tabor. He's gone. They're all gone.
Interesting times. Pay attention, folks. Election is coming up. There's an election next year. Mr. Bob, Mr. Haynie, thank you for joining us this morning.
Always.
See you later.
Good morning, world.